Graduated, and my first job out of college was as in an HR department in a manufacturing plant. Went to work for city government for a couple of years after that. Spent the next 20 some years in Fortune 500 companies. About a little over a decade ago, I decided to change my life, moved to Utah, and started H Architecture to help small business owners with their people needs. And it's been a pleasure and a great opportunity, and I hopefully have helped a lot of small business owners along the way.
Okay, great. Well, let's get started. Let's jump right into it.
Great. I think when you look at, I don't know if you guys kind of give you an overview of the next couple days. Today we're going to talk about the search, because when you talk about hiring people, there's really recruiting and selection. And then the third phase of that is bringing them on board successfully. So today we're going to focus on the search or recruiting. We're going to talk about the importance of hiring, how it's absolutely essential that the culture of your company is embedded in every aspect of the search from the very beginning. And then we're going to talk about defining the need. How do you know who to hire? And I got to hesitate to go through the agenda without jumping into it, because that's the part that a lot of people don't do. Then we get into the actual recruiting strategies, where to find these people, where to advertise. And then when the resumes or the applications begin to, an application is almost like snail mail these days. And we'll talk about that, how people get in touch with you and how candidates get in touch with companies. And then we'll talk about the screening process. And I think that is all we're going to worry about covering today. So if you think about, gosh, I can't do everything to getting the pool of candidates that I really want to talk to. Tomorrow we'll pick up on the selection process. So if you think about, I like to fish. Where I'm fishing is the search. What I do with the fish I'm getting is the selection process. You think about those crab ships, like on those snow crab shows of Alaska king crab fishermen. When they dump the net in, what do they do with all the stuff on the deck? That's the selection process, how you winnow down all those applicants till you get to the point where you can't help yourself but to hire the candidate. Interviewing, and interviewing is an art, and being interviewed is an art. So we're going to spend a fair amount of time tomorrow talking about different ways that you interview. You can interview one shot, you can interview in a sequential fashion, in a panel fashion, in a group fashion. There are different ways you interview depending on the nature of the opening and your culture in the company. Then we'll talk about, after you've interviewed, how you conduct background checks, how you make the decision, how you get to know that person better than you did in the interview. And then finally, how you make an offer. Now that seems to be the easy part, but there's certain rules that are, when I say rules, it's not any regulatory thing, but there's certain things that need to be in an offer to make sure that you and the person you're hiring are on LinkedIn, excuse me, not LinkedIn, which is a site, but you're linked up so that you know exactly what's going on. And then the onboarding process, which makes you successful from the get-go with the employee and the employee successful. So think about today is getting the candidates and tomorrow's just selecting who.
Okay, all right.
Let's start with the importance of hiring. I worked for an organization once with 170,000 employees. And in that type of environment, hiring is crucial, but making a bad hire doesn't cripple your company. If you have 100,000 gallons of water and you drop one drop of contaminant in that 100,000, it doesn't necessarily spoil the batch. But in small business, which is my primary focus these days, and in fact most of the companies in America are fewer than 50 employees, when you're dealing with a small company, one hire can destroy the company. And now think about that. If you are running a company hard, you bring in a salesperson and you hire hastily because you have to fill the position, and that salesperson comes in and they don't understand your culture, they don't understand your likes, your dislikes, your style of operating, then they can make promises to prospects. They can make commitments on behalf of your company. They can be dishonest. And everything they say becomes your company. And sales is the obvious example. let's think about in a retail setting. In a retail setting, I mean, you've got stores with 300 employees and stores with 5 employees. But in a retail setting, it's a great teamwork atmosphere. Everybody has to pull their weight. The cashier has to help with inventory. The inventory has to be set right so that the customers can find out what they need. The back room in a retail operation is critical to make sure that the front room stays fully stocked. Let's take a 5 to 10 employee store, and one of those employees fails to do their job correctly, then the other, and we were talking about this earlier, when one person on that small team fails to pull their weight, everybody else has to step up. That creates stress. That creates dissatisfaction with the workplace. In fact, one of the most challenging things that a business owner can do is when someone's not pulling their weight, the other employees become frustrated and dissatisfied, the good ones leave. The mediocre ones don't leave. The good ones say, I don't need to deal with that. I'm good at what I do. I'm going to go somewhere else where I'm appreciated. And it wasn't a lack of appreciation for the employee that left. It was a lack of dealing with or bringing in the wrong people. So when you're looking at human resources as a whole, and there's a chart that hopefully you can see, the hiring and recruiting and selection process and the onboarding process, those 3 right-hand on your left when you're going clockwise, those are half of the equation. I once worked with a boss. He said, you know something, I want only perfect 10s in my company. I don't want B players.